Hi guys, so this chapter is called Unpasteurized, and this is Donovan's point of view. Donnie! I was getting ready for school when the blood-curdling scream brought me running out of the bathroom. Donnie, get in here this minute! I leaped over Beatrice, who was sprawled across my doorway, and ran into Katie's room, preparing to dial 911. But she was alive and well, sitting at her laptop computer reading her overnight emails from Afghanistan. From First Lieutenant H. Bradley Patterson, United States Marine Corps. Katie, Captain Hunsinger says he saw your stomach on YouTube. What gives, Brad? I reddened. It was probably Noah. YouTube is his whole life. I'm entitled to my life too, you know, she stormed at me. That didn't change because you blackmailed me into signing on your freaky brain trust. I found the video. It's basically a 2-minute close-up of my fat belly while We Are the Champion plays in the background. It's a compliment. He's got nothing better to do with his 200 IQ. Cut it out, Donnie. We're not talking to your misfits here. They're not misfits, I insisted. They're just different, super smart, but dumb in a way too, like babies. It was the wrong word. It reminded her, my husband is 11,000 miles away in a dangerous war zone. He shouldn't be hearing about his wife's pregnancy on YouTube. And his captain shouldn't be hearing about it at all. I'll get Noah to take the video down, I promised. He didn't mean anything. You don't understand about him. She looked curious. What happened to you, Donnie? You're giving your best friends the cold shoulders, but defending these crazies? I'm not, I protested. But she had a point. I had been avoiding the Daniels, who were being totally unreasonable about sharing our Valentine dance with the dweeb army. Sanderson's words, not mine. Poor you, I told him at the time. If you're so offended by smart people, don't go. Dietrich's going to be there, he shot back. And Heather, she's into you, man. At that point, Nussbaum had punched him in the gut. Heather's not into me. Nobody's going to be into anyone when the academy dork sucks all the coolness out of the air, Sanderson had complained. That conversation really bugged me. I mean, nobody knew better than me that the gifted kids weren't exactly uber happening, but this was a school dance, not some A-list Hollywood red carpet event. Like there weren't any uncool people at Hardcastle? I faced Katie. They're not crazy, most of them. Don't knock them. These days, they're your biggest fans. She cast a sour look at Beatrice. They're not exactly facing stiff competition in that department. Show some respect for the almost dead. That's not funny, she snarled through gritted teeth. Did it ever occur to you that my marriage could be on the line over the dog? No, because it's all same to you as long as your weird classmates get to paw the incredible expanding stomach. I sighed. If they're smart enough to predict supernovas on the opposite side of the gallery, credit them with the brains to appreciate how you came into their rescue. Her eyes narrowed. There's something fishy about this whole gifted thing. It doesn't add up. I'm not saying they're stupid, but you're hardly the type to sniff around for extra work. I didn't sniff around. The academy found me, remember? I do remember, she conceded. That's the fishy part. Anyway, we should get going. My appointment with Dr. Malo is at 9:30. I was attending Katie's first obstetric baby doctor checkup. Not as her brother, but as a member of the Human Growth and Development 101. Mr. Osborne had gotten permission for a field trip, so our whole class was going. I hope Dr. Malo had invested in a spacious office. Driving with Katie was an adventure these days. Her stomach was so huge that she had to set the seat all the way to the back. Her arms were barely long enough to reach the wheel, and she hunched forward looking like Jeff Gordon wedged behind a giant beach ball. We were just waddling in from the parking lot when the minibus arrived. You could tell they didn't get a lot of school buses at the clinic. In obstetrics, sorry guys, can't talk today. The only kids involved were the ones being born. and not too many pregnant women arrived with an entourage of brainiacs. The doctor was running late, so we had to wait 40 minutes, which wasn't exactly pleasant. Noah speed read through 2 years' worth of Mother-to-Be magazine, peppering Katie with questions like, "Have you eaten any unpasteurized cheese lately?" "No," she grumbled. "Have you?" "What's your opinion on giving the baby solid food before 4 months?" "You're bringing back my morning sickness," she warned. "Really? According to the June 2011 issue, that happens in the first trimester." She glared at him. "It came back when they saw my stomach on YouTube in Afghanistan." Oz quickly stepped between them. "Let's give Katie a little space, Noah. This is her doctor's appointment, after all. We're just privileged to be here." When we finally got called, the nurse said, "I'm sorry, only immediate family in the examining room." "They are family," Katie informed her with a sigh. "You know how you can't pick your relatives." The woman was adamant. "I'm afraid it's a privacy issue." "I have no privacy," Katie replied weirdly. "My stomach is on YouTube." Oz was ready to back everybody off, but Dr. Manlow was kind of psyched to have an audience. He used to work at a teaching hospital, he explained. He missed having students around. We kept our distance for the exam, of course, but we did watch the sonogram, and we all were invited to put on the stethoscope, cannot talk today, and listen to the baby's heartbeat. "Sounds kind of freaky," commented Luttrell. "You know, listening to another person who's trapped in there?" Katie made a face. "I can't tell you how thrilled I am that my family planning is contributing to your horror movie fantasy." "It's a miracle," Chloe breathed. Even Abigail's serious expression softened when she had the stethoscope on. Oz assumed a far-off, dreamy expression. "I remember these appointments from when my wife and I were expecting our own kids. There's nothing quite like it." The doctor kept Katie a few minutes extra. When she stepped out into the waiting room, the students of the Human Growth and Development 101 leaped to their seats and gave her a rousing standing ovation. Their enthusiasm was so infectious that everybody in the reception room joined in. All the other expectant moms and dads and family members. Katie was so taken back that she actually did a little curtsy, blushing deep mauve. "I didn't do anything," she insisted, but the smile on her face was 100% genuine. Katie headed home alone, and I got on the minibus with everyone else for the ride to the academy. "How was the field trip?" asked the driver. "Fun?" Chloe nodded. We were at the appointment, and we listened to the fetus," added Noah. The driver seemed bewildered. "We're gifted," I explained. All right, this is unsuccessful. This is Dr. Schultz. Well, my no screw-up rule was pretty much out the window. My life had become one big screw-up after another. 3 weeks had passed, and not a single repair had been made to the Hardcastle gym. Frankly, no one was doing anything about anything. The insurance company was digging in its corporate heels and had no option but to dig in ours. The instrument of destruction, Atlas's detached globe, was collecting dust in the basement of the administration building, next to the old filing cabinets and a lawn tractor that was missing one wheel. What was left of the statue looked incomplete and idiotic. Most maddening of all, I could not for the life of me find the piece of paper on which I'd written the name of the horrible boy responsible for all this. I scoured every millimeter of my office. I even gone personally and ransacked Cynthia's desk in case she carried off by accident. I'd hired a cleaning company to go over the entire administration building with a fine-tooth comb. Nothing. He was out there somewhere, laughing at me, getting off scot-free. My wife said I was becoming obsessed with this phantom boy. Maybe so. Lately, I've been finding excuses to visit Hardcastle Middle School in the hope that I would recognize his sneering face somewhere, but I never saw him. It was as if the culprit didn't go to school there anymore. If only I had the name. Irrationally, I begun shuffling papers on my desk. It had been right here. Cynthia trotted in on her high heels. "Dr. Schultz, I have the first progress report of the new Human Growth and Development Project at the Academy. The special expert's name is Katie Patterson, and she's the sister of one of the students, a boy named Don Just put it on my desk, I interrupted, still peering into the drawers. Wasn't that the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result? I had to get a grip on my nerves. I had duties to perform, and bringing this boy to justice was one of them. Case in point, the relocated Hardcastle Middle School Valentine dance was tonight. This would be the first time it had ever taken place off campus, and the first time that outside students were being included. We were indefinitely proud of our high achievers at the Academy of Scholastic Distinction, but many of them weren't the most socially inept young people. I wanted to be on hand to make sure everything ran smoothly. And I mustn't forget to make contact with Mrs. Patterson so I could express the gratitude of the entire school district. What a wonderful family they must be. The husband serving our country in the military, and she selflessly helping the one class in its time of need. If only more people were like that. If you only knew, right? All right, this is called Unrockin', and this is Chloe. Hypothesis. I have the perfect wardrobe for milking a cow. No, that was more than a hypothesis. It was cold, hard fact, backed up by the pathetic reality of the contents of my closet. Also feeding chickens, pulling weeds, driving a combine harvester, and other farm chores. What I didn't have was anything to wear to the Valentine dance. It wasn't exactly a shocker, sad to say. I'd never been to anything like this before. Almost 14 years old, and the only real party I attended was the kind where your parents were there and you have to waltz with your cousin, the bow-legged one with a giant Adam's apple. Excuse me. Don't get me wrong, I was psyched. I was beyond psyched. To me, this is far more than any other school shindig we've been invited to crash. This was a chance for us to prove an important hypothesis in front of the staff and students of the biggest middle school in town. Hypothesis. Being gifted doesn't automatically make people social outcasts. True, some of us were social outcasts. Noah Euclid came to mind. But regular school had those too. We were no different from the rest of humanity, and we were going to show that we were every bit as capable of having a good time. All thanks to Donovan Curtis. Obviously, I understood that Donovan hadn't made any of this happen directly. He couldn't possibly have destroyed the Hardcastle gym, forcing them to move the dance to ours. Nobody was capable of shaping human events like that. Yet the minute he walked into Oz's homeroom that day, I knew things were about to change. I could feel it in the air, smell it in the wind. Of course, that might have been the sulfur fumes from the chemistry lab down the hall. It was almost as if the gods of normal had sent us their messenger as a sign that our geekdom was coming to an end. Donovan was almost too normal. I've heard the rumors around school about an unqualified kid at the academy. It wasn't hard to identify this newbie who didn't have what it took. It might have just gossip. Some of us so hyper-competitive that it killed us to admit anybody else could be the real deal. From what I've seen of Donovan, though, there might have been an element of truth to the gossip. It pained me to say it. I like him a lot, and he's made a huge contribution to our robotics team, in spite of the very limited knowledge of the subject. Best of all, he found a way for us to fulfill our human growth and development requirement. Something that helped him not at all. He was doing it purely for us. He was wonderful, but was he gifted? I wanted to believe it. I tried so hard, yet in my heart of hearts, I knew the answer. Back to the matter at hand, what to wear. The only guidelines from the school stated that attire could not be inappropriate. That meant no t-shirts with bad language, torn jeans, or miniskirts that could double as headbands. One look in my closet told me that my entire wardrobe was inappropriate. There was nothing that would get me in trouble with the teachers, but everything was so drab. My shirts were all plaid, which doesn't exactly scream party, unless there's a lumberjack theme. I finally settled on the dress I had worn to my Aunt Julie's wedding. It was definitely over the top for a school dance, so I made it more casual by adding a plain black cardigan. I considered wearing sneakers instead of fancy shoes that went with the outfit, but I couldn't tell if the combination would be funky or just plain stupid. I went to the academy for scholastic distinction, not for the one for fashion sense. Makeup was the next hurdle. I thought back to those girls in the mall, the ones hanging out with Donovan and the two boys named Daniel. They've been wearing tons of makeup. It looked great on them, but if I tried it, for sure I'd paint myself up like Bozo the Clown. In the end, I opted for light mascara and a hint of blush. My complexion can be a little pale from too much time in the library. You look beautiful, my dad declared emotionally. Hypothesis. The compliment loses credibility in direct proportion to how closely related you are to the speaker. We headed for school. There was a traffic jam on the circular drive. Kids were swarming from all directions, alone and in groups, arriving by car, bike, skateboard, scooter, and on foot. The academy was small, but Hardcastle Middle had 900 students, and it looked like it was going to be a huge turnout. I felt a renewed buzz of excitement, followed by a severe bout of anxiety. By the time we got to the front door, I already knew that my outfit was totally wrong. Most of the girls were wearing either jeans or short skirts, with sneakers or sandals despite the cold weather. In the end, though, nothing could overpower my exhilaration. Now barely a few months shy of 8th grade graduation, I was attending my first middle school dance. I finally had an answer for all of those people who said, "Get a life." I was getting one. Amazingly, I made it into the gym, attracting only a few strange looks, so I guess I wasn't as overdressed as I feared. The place was about a third full, and kids were pouring in, chattering happily, ready for a good time. The decorations caught the eye first. I don't want to be unkind, but they were really lame. Hearts and cupids, lots of streamers, pink, red, and silver, everywhere. Hardcastle had done the whole setup. If they put us in charge of it, I'm sure we could have come up with something a little more creative, but maybe that was the point. Hypothesis. Not everything needs to be measured by gifted standards. Tonight was supposed to be about kicking back and cutting loose a little. Too bad I was doing it in a dorky party dress. The music was loud, really loud. Feel it in your molars loud. People were already dancing, another problem. I didn't know how to do that either, not the way they were doing anyways. Hypothesis. The scientific method applies to everything, dancing included. In other words, if I studied it hard enough, I could catch up. I only saw a few kids from the academy, mostly because they seemed to be hiding. They lurked in the corners or in the shadow of the DJ booth. The way they goggled at our guest, you'd think we've been invaded by Huns who were presently sacking the school. The Hardcastle kids were brasher than us, wilder and more confident. The boys were a lot more physical. At any given time, 40% of them were engaged in shoving one another, and they outnumbered us 10-1. I spotted Oz right away. He wasn't with the other chaperones. He circulated among his own students, urging them to mingle. He would have had a better chance getting Abigail to impale herself on a fence post. I caught her attention, and she gave me a beseeching look, the kind you turn on the helicopter pilot who's coming to save you from drowning. Trying to set a positive example of the sort of host Oz expects us to be. I turned to the boy standing next to me and said, "Great turnout. Are all the Hardcastle parties this crowded?" He didn't hear me. The pounding beat was so loud that my words died less than an inch away from my lips. I repeated it, shouting this time. He shot me a smirk, and I leaned in to catch his reply. "You getting married in that dress?" And before I could answer, he was yanked away through the cloud by a group of friends. "Hi, Chloe!" The voice wasn't any louder than mine, but its piercing quality cut through the music like a fire siren. If I was worried about being improperly dressed, Noah looked all that pressure onto his shoulders. Wait till this outfit is described. His outfit defied description, but in the gifted program, we're encouraged to try. He was shirtless, his upper body covered only by a sparkling sequined vest. His pants were black tights, which made him skinny legs even skinnier. You couldn't see much of them because he had on knee-high red leather boots that must have weighed 30 pounds each. It was a miracle he could even walk. Mirrored sunglasses concealed his eyes, and his unstylish brush cut was covered with a red do-rag. I was horrified. "Noah, what are you wearing?" I borrowed the boots and the vest from my mom, he enthused. When the Angel of Death fought Kid Nitro at the Royal Rumble, this was just what he wore. Yeah, but this is a dance, not a wrestling match, he shrugged. Oz said we had to dress up. I had no answer to that, but I sure wanted to there when Oz got a gander at what Noah thought dress up looked like. Hypothesis. As the space fills with people, the air inside warms, approaching 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, the body temperature of the crowd. I began to regret my cardigan. I was going to be sweaty, not just overdressed. It was getting really packed to the point where glimpses of the floor were rare. Lost in the wall-to-wall students, I was no longer able to survey the entire party. Instead, I catch the occasional familiar face amid the forest of heads and shoulders. I located Latrell by the back wall. It seemed like Oz was working on him to ask someone to dance. Kevin and JC were hanging together for mutual support in this alien environment. I thought I saw Donovan once, but it turned out to be somebody else. Maybe he wasn't going to show up. All my nervousness returned in an icy wave. There was something isolating about being smothered by strangers, even in a familiar setting like your own school gym. As the crush tightened around me, I felt myself swept along with the movement of the crowd. I was afraid at first until I recognized the strange combination of motions that pushed me back and forward. Dancing? As far as I could see in every direction, bodies gyrated, heads were thrown back, hands swayed through the air. I tried to bulldoze my way of the group, but flailing arms and swinging hips jolted me. I kept stumbling, but there was no more to that than that. I was stumbling in perfect time to the music. I raised my hands and moved my feet, following the pounding bass. Hypothesis, intentional or not, movement to a beat, dancing. I risked a furtive glance at my neighbors. No, what do you think you're doing? Glares. No gathering lynch mob. I cranked up the energy level, rollicking at light speed. I, Chloe Garfinkel of the Academy of Scholastic Distinction, was one of the crowd, letting it all hang out like a major middle school bash. This was the greatest night of my life.